Professor Wergely's here. We edited our home page. We just have a few elements left. This is almost finished. We looked at Angular routing from the front end and the back end. We have now used reactive forms, and we're now going to add our material icons properly. So before we added a little link in the index.html page, now we're going to use npm install. So if I come back to VS Code, I'm going to do an npm install. Okay, npm install material-icons. Okay, what's nice about this is going to add it in our package JSON. That way, if anybody else downloads our app, they do an npm install once they get it, and all of these dependencies will be installed for them automatically. Yeah, you don't see it here yet, but you do see our ng bootstrap, and you will see our material icons. This package is pretty small, but it needs to add it in the corresponding file, so you need to wait just a little bit. Once you add this in, it actually added that to our node module. So instead of putting a link in the index.html file, you'll see here I actually have my ng bootstrap right here in my node modules. And then if I scroll down to M, you'll see how many node modules you need just to get this Angular application running. It's a lot. Okay, that's why you never pass the node modules around. You always have your package JSON. Whenever somebody downloads, you do an npm install or npm I, and then it'll install everything for you. Okay, here's my material icons, and it has the CSS file. I'm going to use this material icons CSS, and it has everything for me there. You also see it has the SCSS file if you're using SCSS in Angular. But for now, we're going to use this CSS file. Okay, and you also see it has the min CSS. It gets rid of the spacing, so it's a little bit quicker to load. And when I do a ng, so Angular CLI's build, which you can read about here in deploying an application, it makes the distribution folder, and then all of your node modules will be packaged together. Everything for Angular, it's always compiled back down to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because that's the languages of the web. But what's nice about that is you can put it on any server. You can write it on Node.js, Java, .NET, Apache. Doesn't really matter what server you're using. You don't even need a server. You can use your GitHub IO, which is hosts a single page application. It hosts a static web page. This is considered a static web page because we don't have any server-side code. So you can even host this site on GitHub IO. And that's what makes Angular so powerful. So once I have it in my node modules, I'm going to go over to my CSS files. So let's close this big thing up. I don't need that when I'm passing it around. You just pass the code. But if I want to use it, I come over here to my CSS. I'm going to add another import up at the top. You'll see that first import's actually importing from the web. Okay, that's importing Google Fonts from an actual URL. I'm going to import from my local. And if I wanted to make my site more secure, making sure that I always have this font available, I would also download this font family and import locally as well. So I'm going to import from material icons. Now what's nice about this is it already knows what I want to import from. Okay, I want to import from node modules. Look for material icons, then look for icon font, and then look for material -icons min CSS. Okay, you can use the regular CSS as well. Min is a little bit quicker. As soon as I do an npm install, and as soon as I add this import, go back to the code. If it's still running, you can just look at it directly. Otherwise, do an ng serve. Okay, looks like we have some problems here. So let's go ahead and go back to our ng serve. Let's see, we have some problems. So I'm going to do Control C. And then let's do an ng serve again. Okay, it looks like I have the wrong directory here. It's actually in the CSS directory. Save this, recompile, and see if we get any of those errors. Okay, you can see these errors too. You'll see it's looking for material icons min CSS and it's failed to find, so it can't find it. It went into the icon font directory. If I go back into node modules and look, okay, you can actually go into the material icons and look to see what you're actually importing. In material icons, if I go into icon font, I don't have any min CSS. Okay, did I put the right link? Material dash icons dot min dot CSS. Looks like I'm missing an S here, so it would have failed anyway, even if I spelled it right, or I got the right directory. Okay, so let's refresh. May have to build it again. So do an ng serve again, and let's see if this time it'll go. Okay, looks like I misspelled it again. I had an extra S there. Try it again. Okay, once you have the correct path, it'll build successfully. Go back to the page, refresh. Okay, you'll see it's here, but I'm not loading the icons. Okay, I'm not loading the icon. You'll see my error message there. Not loading the icons. So what's happening here? Come back. It may not be in the CSS directory. It may be in the icon font directory. And you may not use the min CSS. You may just use the CSS. Let's try this. I may have had the wrong directory. Save it. If you have the right path, it should reload automatically. And now you'll see your Angular icon. Okay, so this is the correct way to implement your Angular icons. Do an npm install. Although the other way works, and although the other way is in the documentation. Okay, using npm will be better because then I don't have to pass these files around. Once I clone the application from GitHub or GitHub Classroom, then I do an npm install, and then it will download the packages for me. Okay, and that's the common way to implement for Angular. Usually there's an npm package, and if there's not, you can do the import way, but you'll usually try to find the npm way first. Okay, this works. You'll see I have this Angular routing here. Now I can just URL hack, so I can just bypass the login. That's not really the main point for this video. The main point for this video is just to show you Angular routing and how that works. And make sure you understand how to do the nav bar. In this case, I'd probably get rid of the nav bar. Yeah, I just get rid of the nav bar. You can only access the home page if you log in. Although you can still URL hack. That's actually for a different lecture. We'll go over auth guards later and talk more about that. And we'll go over Angular material. We'll look at interfaces and types. And we'll get into pipes and a bunch of different other Angular concepts. Okay, so if you want to remove that, I would come back over here, remove this nav. Although for the challenge, you may put it here or make a nav bar component. Now it'll look a little bit nicer. We actually need a way to get back to the login page. What if we want to log out? So maybe right here in the form. Okay, this may not look the best, but we can add it here. I'll use the original Angular routing with an A tag. Okay, so if I want to go back to the login, I'll just call log out. You usually have a cookie, or on Angular, you'll use the auth guards. So if they click on log out, you'd actually call a function, set the auth guard back to false. That way, if they try to URL hack or come back to the same page, it won't let them. Okay, we'll get into that a little bit later. So I click log out, goes back to the login page, log in correctly. It'll go back to the home page. So this is your Angular routing. Okay, Angular routing. And then we got the original application to work. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen if I disable JavaScript. Okay, what's going to happen if I disable JavaScript? So let's do a quick commit. This will be our last commit for the home page. So I'll do a git status, git commit -a -m. We fixed the material icons and added logout functionality. Okay, do a git status. We're on the home page branch, so I would do a git checkout back to dev, and I would do a git merge with home page. I do a git checkout back to master, and I do a git merge with home page. And then I push all of my branches up. So I'd push up master, push up dev, push up login, push up homepage. And that's what I would do for my Challenger exploration. And by having these branches, so by having a branch for each feature, it's a way to get some bonus points on your Challenger exploration. Okay, because this is how you would implement it in the industry. Now let's talk about this. So if I come over here to the browser and I go over here to my settings, and in the settings, I search for JavaScript. And you'll see site controls. Okay, if you come down here, JavaScript is allowed. So what if you go over and you disable JavaScript? Although that's not recommended, some users could do that. So now if I refresh my page, nothing works at all. Why? Angular is built off of JavaScript. So if I can't use JavaScript, Angular is not going to work at all. But I want something to at least show up. I want my user to know, hey, I need JavaScript enabled, or even better yet, the site still works, but it's not very user-friendly. It's just a really rough looking UI. In some cases, it'll look exactly the same. Okay, if you have a really good site, if they disable JavaScript, you'll just use the old school techniques. We could have just had a link there. When you click on it, it's a link, just like we did with our Angular routing. Okay, we could have done exactly an A tag. Instead of router link, you would actually use href. Okay, you'd actually use href. So we could get this to work. Now, if you want to get this to work, you're going to be looking at the NoScript tag. So I look at the NoScript tag, and you'll see Google uses the same technologies that we're using. Okay, they're gonna build a lot of their applications with single page apps like Angular as well. But you see, Google still worked, so they have a good website. I disabled JavaScript and they still work. It doesn't look the best, but hey, it still works, and that's how a good website should be. If I come over to W3 Schools, W3 Schools still works, and that's how a good website should be. So you'll see I have script tags, and then you have the NoScript tag. So let's just try one of these as a quick example. Now, I'm not going to go over the whole challenge, but I'll give you an idea. Okay, I'll give you an idea. So here in the index.html, I'm not going to change too much of this, but if I put it anywhere else, so let's say I go here, this is the main page. So let's say I have a NoScript tag here and save it. Okay, make sure your page is still working. Let's go back to our page. Refresh. Will you see it? No, you won't. Because remember, Angular needs to run in order for it to even insert information into here. And Angular needs to run in order to insert information into the app root. So without Angular running, this is the page that's going to be displayed. So you'll see to-do app multi-view. And that's essentially all that you're going to see up here. There's nothing else. So if you want to put these NoScript tags, you're actually going to need to put them in the index.html. Okay, you're going to need to put them in the index.html. So you have some NoScript tags here. And you'll see if I go back to the W3 Schools link and try it yourself, let's look at the code. You'll see they put it here at the body, at the bottom of the body. So I come back, I'm going to put it here at the bottom of the body, NoScript tags. Come back and run the page, refresh, and you'll actually see something. Say, at least you see something. Now, we're going to go over how to fix this page if JavaScript is disabled. So stick with Professor Wergeles, and we'll see you in the next video.